today. And if you're visiting Taylor, Mississippi, you'll want to stop in the Plein Air community. They are up to some good things. And joining us is the mastermind behind the neighborhood, Campbell McCool. Hey, Campbell.
Hey, Rebecca, how are you?
I am doing well. I love this story. It's always interesting to me, the backstory of maybe how really cool and unique neighborhoods come about. Oftentimes we don't take, the time to sit and hear the backstory. And yours actually started all the way back in 2001 when you and your wife were living in Atlanta. So take us back there. What was life like for you and your wife in 2001?
Oh, in 2001, we were both still in the advertising industry in Atlanta. We had two little boys with a third one on the way. But I had my own agency called McCool Communications, and she worked for the world's largest agency, BBDO. And so we were in kind of two separate worlds. But that was a seminal year for us. It was the year that I sold my agency to a Canadian-based holding company, and that kind of started the wheels in motion that ultimately, eventually turned into being the Plein Air Neighborhood here in Taylor.
Now, you and your family, or your family for sure, and your wife, I think, have a long history there in Lafayette County. You mentioned maybe going back 100 years. How rooted is the McCools there in and around town?
Well, it's way more than 100 years. It's probably closer to 200 years now, I guess. But so it's a funny story. My wife and I didn't meet until we were in Atlanta, and we actually met in a business setting on a job interview. So you fast forward a few years later, and we come to realize that both of our families had come from, and around here they call it Lafayette County. You get onto Lafayette, Louisiana, but it's Lafayette. So my great-great-grandfather and my wife's great-great-grandfather both had been at Ole Miss before the Civil War, and both left when the Civil War broke out. And then my great-grandfather went on to become the first dean of the business school here at Ole Miss, and so forth and so forth. Her great-grandfather was the first dean, the first sheriff of Lafayette County. And so it was kind of really a interesting side story that this is where we would end back up.
So how did you guys meet, since it is Valentine's Day, there in Atlanta, that far away from home, but yet I guess still, Mississippi's a small town, even in a big world. So how did you and your wife cross paths?
Well, as I mentioned, we were both in the advertising business, and I had a lot of golf accounts, clients in the golf business. And at the time, she was managing a piece of business in golf as well. She managed the Max Fly golf ball account, and we were looking for someone with some golf experience, and several people kept giving me her name, and I called her up and said, we're looking to hire somebody, and here we are almost 30 years later with a couple of grown boys. So
that's pretty cool. Okay, so was it hard to twist her arm to move back to Mississippi, or were you both looking forward to maybe leaving the hustle and bustle of Atlanta and getting back to home?
Well, we got to test drive it a little bit. So we bought a little small cottage over here while we were still living in Atlanta, and we'd, come over 8 to 10 times a year. And I went to school at Ole Miss. She did not. And again, we both had family roots here. And so for, about 5 years, we got to test drive things here in Lafayette County. And then by the time our third son came along, and then I sold the agency, and we said, it might be a pretty good place to raise 3 boys. So here we are.
Here you are. But you didn't start out developing neighborhoods when you moved back home, Campbell. You actually took a job, I think, there at Ole Miss and just realized, you were itching for some entrepreneurship.
That's right. Robert Kayat was the chancellor, and he had been a longtime friend. And after I sold my agency, he asked me to come back and start a new program. It was a joint venture between the 3 universities and the private sector, and I did. And there were some things about it that I really liked, but to be honest with you, I missed the fast-paced environment of being an entrepreneur, and higher education is the polar opposite of that. It's, it felt to me like we were scheduling meetings to discuss when the next meeting was going to be, and that's just not me. And so my career in higher education was short-lived.
That's okay. When you know it's not, meant for you, it's good to take a turn and maybe go find where your passions lie. And it feels like you found your passion in 64 acres you and your wife came across. Or did you know when you purchased the 64 acres that it would later be the Plein Air neighborhood that it is today? Or was it kind of the cart before the horse?
Oh, no. It was, so we were actually living here in Taylor when we moved back from Atlanta on a little farm right down the road. And a neighbor mentioned that this field down the street, that the gentleman who owned it was looking to sell it. And I'd pass by it twice a day, every day, and we would jog past it and all that. And, I thought it was nothing else. It's probably a good investment. It wasn't real expensive. And we bought it. But no, it was several years after that we kind of stared at this field, this abandoned cotton field, for a couple of years, and the idea started germinating of building a neighborhood, which ultimately became the Plein Air Neighborhood, and the history of the name. So we wanted to. I grew up in New Orleans, okay, and I grew up in a shotgun house that was built in the 1840s, had no air conditioning. About 4 feet separated our house and our next door neighbor's house, and there was literally a corner grocery on our block, and a frame store down the street, and it was a true neighborhood, where kids played in the streets after school, and you could walk to dinner at a little sandwich shop, places like that. And I literally, Leighton and I, my wife, just kept kind of kicking around the idea of, what if we built something like that right there, And at the time, we had no idea what we were talking about. I mean, it was just like, sure, how hard could that be? And then we knew that we wanted it to be a neighborhood that celebrated the arts, which is plein air. The term plein air is a French term meaning in the open air. And you see painters like Wyatt Waters or other folks who set up outdoors and paint. They're called plein air painters. And that was where the name came from. But no, I'd like to say it was a part of some super intricate master plan, but that's not how it happened.
Well, sometimes I think just having a little bit of naive going into something, I think they sometimes call it the fool's decision at first. It plays out to your, in your favor because you don't know what you don't know, and going in a little bit naive to starting something, you may not have done it, Campbell, if you knew everything that was going to go into, creating a neighborhood or trying to get that vibe going. It would have stopped you from making those initial steps, which sounds like you and your wife are in for an adventure for sure. Help paint us, though, the picture of what Taylor was like, prior to Plein Air coming to town, which even, it's taken several years for you to get up to your 82 residents there, which I know you have room for more. What was it? Was it a sleepy little town? Like, what was Taylor like when you made this decision to start this neighborhood?
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of change that I saw from the Taylor when I was in school at Ole Miss in the 1980s to the Taylor of 2005, let's say. Now, Taylor Grocery certainly was the most well-known thing in Taylor, and the current iteration of Taylor Grocery had come into being by then. When I was back in school in the 80s, it was, still the old Taylor Grocery that was actually a store where you'd go in and get fishing lures and all that, and you could get some food in the back. But Taylor, was still, and still is to a large degree, a small, the population of Taylor, and Taylor's a fully incorporated town, even though we're only, 7 minutes from Oxford. Taylor's with a, mayor and a board of aldermen and zoning and all that. 450 people live in Taylor, and that's growing for sure. But, Taylor then was much like it was when I was in college, and there's still a whole lot of that in Taylor right now. Small family farms, a lot of multi-generational people live in Taylor whose families have been here, way back into the early 1900s, and it's just a very peaceful place. But one asterisk to all that, Taylor has really, for about the past 40 years, attracted artists. And going back to Jane Rule Burdine and Bill Beckwith and Obie Clark and some of the original artists that came to Taylor for a couple of reasons. It was cheaper real estate, and there was also a natural gas line that went right through the middle of town. And So Taylor kind of had a reputation for being friendly to artists, and that always appealed to me.
And that has paid it forward, too, in Plein Air Neighborhood. You are friendly with artists, but you're also growing. So we're going to learn more from Campbell McCool coming up now. If you need a lady in red today, you can go to supertalktv.com. I will do that for you, as you will see. Wearing my red sweater for Valentine's Day today. Rhino said he was going to play the worst Valentine's music during Good Things Today for a twist, because we all get the sappy stuff enough. And he wanted to make sure my feelings weren't hurt because I was also wearing red today. And now his cheeks are red, but that's okay. We're finding out more, too, about our guest on Good Things Adventure, Mr. Campbell McCool. He developed the Plein Air Neighborhood in Taylor, Mississippi in Lafayette County. Did I get it right this time, Mr. Campbell?
That's it.
Yes. Thank you for correcting me for sure. Okay, I love this. You launched Plein Air in 2006 on 64 acres. How scary was that? What was it like when you finally put out the lots, put it out there, and said, if we help build it, will they come?
Well, I mean, I'll give you an example. On the very first day we started, they get out here with the bulldozers and all that, and this guy immediately, within 10 minutes of starting, breaks the town water main, and water is shooting 90 feet in the air. And I mean, we've been in business 10 minutes now, and I was like, maybe this is a sign. I don't know, but we spent probably 18 months putting infrastructure in, and that there was a lot more to that than I, probably realized on the very front end. And then right when we kind of said, all right, we're ready to start marketing and getting going, the world economy fell off a cliff. 2008 was not a great year in real estate, nor was 2009 or 10. And so it was a rough beginning for us, no question about it. And it took everything we had to keep it going, but we did, and got through that terrible period that lasted a couple of years, and almost relaunched the neighborhood in about 2012. But we officially started 2006, got going in 2008, and then emerged out of that dark tunnel about 8 years ago.
And where are you at now in terms of number of houses, number of like restaurants or commercial? Because you had a vision of it being a neighborhood with also like a square, which is similar to in Oxford. People know the town square with shops and restaurants and such. So where are you at now with your vision?
The vision never changed. I mean, that was one of the reasons, it was so difficult in the beginning, is like, so we're not going to sacrifice or alter what it is that we had in mind. And so right now we're probably 50% of the way built out on the residential side with houses. We're about 90 houses done now, about halfway built out there. Our commercial district is about 7 acres in size, and it's probably 25% built out. We've got 12 businesses on our town square. We've got a great restaurant called Grit. We've got the Lost Dog Coffee Shop. We've got an optometry office. We've got a new general store called Offbeat in General, a psychological office, a hair salon about to go. We got a new grocery store opening. We've got the Mill at Plein Air events venue. We are hoping to announce shortly a new small luxury hotel project we've been working on, and a yoga and Pilates center. So, as I say, we're probably 25% built out on the commercial side. When we're fully built out, our commercial district will be maybe larger than the square in Oxford. So we got a long way to go there.
You have a long way to go, but you've come a long way, too, in your story with your vision of Plein Air. What I love a lot about it is the fact that you were very drawn to bringing back front porches in a very significant way to your neighborhood. So what was it about making sure that the homes, the residential side, was built with community in mind?
Well, I mean, just for starters, I had never lived in a house that didn't have a front porch. I mean, from the house I grew up in New Orleans to just literally every house I'd ever lived in had a front porch. I didn't know anything other than a house with a front porch. And so naturally, the front porch was going to be a big part of the houses that we built here, very traditional Southern vernacular type thing. But it really wasn't until a couple of years into the project that I started studying the significance of the front porch in in the South and in American society. And, Rebecca, not everybody realizes this, but most houses, particularly in the South, prior to 1940, had a front porch. And then three factors came along that started driving the front porch away. The first, of course, was air conditioning and the fact that it became more affordable. And so you no longer needed that outside room to cool off at the end of the day. And then the television, was driving people inside off the front porch. And then the one that really drove the knife in the heart of the front porch was the automobile. And so as most people started having a car, you could build further away, and it gave rise to the suburbia. And in suburbia, you no longer needed the front porch because you got air conditioning and the television. And you didn't need sidewalks because you got a car. Nobody's walking anymore. So you would just drive right into your garage, walk inside, flip on the idiot box, grab a beer, and, life was great, and hit repeat the next day. And so what happened, and sociologists started studying this, is neighborhoods that were designed without a front porch really started taking on a different personality. And the biggest manifestation of that was your neighbors didn't talk to each other anymore. And you weren't out strolling, the kids in the stroller because you didn't have sidewalks in suburbia. And it absolutely changed the personality of neighborhoods. And all of that goes back to one simple feature, the front porch. And so I kind of went crazy with this thing and started studying it. And I said, we've got to celebrate the front porch. And so we started something in 2015 called the Conference on the Front Porch, and it's held every fall here at Plein Air. And we bring in speakers, and we celebrate what the front porch stands for: slower pace of life, community interaction, neighbors, food, music, all that. And it's just, we've kind of become known as Mississippi's front porch neighborhood, and that's how it all happened.
Well, I think it's a lovely thing, and it reminds us, too, that, it does matter to know your neighbors or to be able to mix and mingle with those that live right next to you. Neighborhoods who have community kind of feel, they're also safer. They're usually cleaner. There's a lot of other good things that come along with interacting and really knowing your neighbors. And I think most of us would agree that a lot of that is, happens on the front porch or around the front porch, wherever it may be. So I absolutely love this concept, or at least reminding us how important it is to have that spot where we can sort of collect. And it doesn't have to be inside your house. It can be, outside and sort of moving around. So if people are moving around, Campbell, maybe they're in Oxford looking to get out of town. Do you still have lots available for residential? How do folks get in touch with what you're doing there at Plein Air if they're interested?
Oh, well, thanks. I'm easy to find here at Plein Air, and we do have lots still available. We actually 2021, we thought we had enough lots to last us another 2 years, and we sold out of everything we had. So we're right in the middle of putting in 23 new lots. It'll be ready in about a month or two, but we're already marketing those and selling those. So we've got room for about another 70 or 80 houses. What's interesting, Rebecca, going back to what you just said, is COVID and really reminded people about the importance of the front porch. And you started seeing people sit on their front porch and sitting in their front yard in ways that maybe they hadn't done in forever. And that was just another reminder to us about the importance of the front porch. But we got plenty more to go, so come see us here in Taylor at Plein Air.
Thinking back 20 years ago now, 2021, Campbell, when you and your wife made the decision to move back to Mississippi, specifically, nestling there in Taylor, could you imagine that this is where you'd be 2 decades later?
Well, I certainly didn't see it, this clear, but we knew we wanted to come back here and raise our boys in a small town. We're both very creative people. Mississippi was in our blood, both of us, and so much of that has rung true. And maybe we didn't see exactly how it was all going to come together, but it's kind of fit with who we are and the kind of things that we enjoy doing.
Well, you got 3 boys, so that's 3 McCool opportunities to keep the bloodline going there in Lafayette County. Do we think that we may get another 100 years of McCool in Mississippi?
You never know. We've been around for a while, so hopefully they will.
Hopefully they will. Well, we hope that Plein Air continues to grow and bring the community of Oxford and Lafayette County together, and keep the good work up. I think it's pretty cool, and you make me want to go sit on my front porch now. So and take advantage of that.
Get you an iced tea and a book, and go enjoy some time on your front porch. Rebecca, thank you. It's been great being with you.
Yeah, I appreciate your time too. There you go. All righty, you guys stick with us. We've got more terrible love songs for you here on Good Things and a little Valentine's Day fun coming up next.